Well, as I continue to make progress on these two stagecoaches that used to run in Yellowstone Park, last time I started building the seat bases because I didn't have enough coal to enter into the steam bending process of these laterals in the back frame. Well, you all know now I did make it down to Sheridan. I have that coal, so when the weather starts to cool off here a little bit this fall, I can get into that bending process. For now, I'm going to continue on building on these seats. These have 3/8 thick panels that set inside this framing. Well, there has to be kind of a rabbet joint that goes down each side of these front and rear frames so that this seat can sit down in here flush. These are 7/8 frames, and so when I split that difference, I have the lap joint that is 7/16 on both sides. I'm only going to rabbet this down for 3/8 inch thick seat board, so it will clear this joint as well. So that's what I'm going to do next. So this gives me all my seat bases. I have all the rabbets cut, including the driver's seats. This front seat of the two on the 11, I made 1/4 inch narrower. This one is 52.5. This one is 52.25. Similar to that other pair of red seats, which was a Western coach, just like this one was. So it's narrowing in with the curvature of the body. So I use that measurement to determine this measurement here. So from here, I just need to get these glued together. Then I've got some other fine trimming to do before I actually put the seat backs and the arms on. Well, as much as you try to get everything exact when you're cutting all the joints, you never have everything perfect. But it is where I like these shoeing rasps. It lets me just take these little imperfections out and kind of float them out. Really doesn't take much. Some of these are going cross grain, but I'll take the DA sander and take all these scratches out. And it's a little different than doing furniture because I'm not going to do it naturally finished. All this gets primed and painted. And you can see that I have a mixture of oaks and ash together. And characteristic wise, they're really pretty similar. So I don't worry about color. They're just really pretty close. So I was able to glue these up fairly quickly. When I glue them like this, I do let them set for about an hour, hour and a half to unclamp them. Then I set them aside and I do all this finish work 12 hours later, usually the next day. Well, there's still a little finish work that needs to be done on these frames before I start to assemble the seat backs and the seat arms. The leading edge of these frames are all cut at a 15-degree angle. I'm not sure if the camera has enough detail to pick this up close, but you can see we're not square, we're 15 degrees off. And then the outside edge as well as the rear edge is beveled here as well, and that bevel comes down right to the center of this lap joint. So this 15-degree taper is an easy taper to put on. Before I put this 25-degree taper on, there's another little decorative groove that needs to be put on the edge of these, and these corners actually get rounded out, and we'll look at that on the old seat. So these front corners have a radius that's not real large. The rear corner has a little larger radius, and oftentimes I just try to find things around the shop here that will match that radius. This little piece of pipe fits that front radius pretty well, and oftentimes I've found these paint cans are really pretty close to the radius on these rear corners. And I can just put these on my big belt sander and round those out. On the edge of the side and the rear, you can see that there's a groove that has been cut in right through the bottom portion. Now this is a lap joint, so the top part of that lap will get that 25-degree bevel, and it stops right where that lap joint is. So in the middle portion of this bottom 3/8 to 7/16 is this groove. Well, in the past, I've taken an old router bit and I have kind of reground it just for the purpose of this groove. So this is the bit that I'm going to use to put this in. And the reason I want to do it before I put the bevel in is because I need this tip to have something to run on. This is not a roller tip like your newer ones are. So I need this to be in place. That's why I want to do this before I do the bevel. So this is one of those little features that is kind of a distinct signature of Abbot-Downing on these Yellowstone coaches. Does it actually serve any purpose? None other than decoration and finish. So the last step is actually to put this bevel on, and this is the 25-degree bevel that I want. So I'm actually just going to use this to adjust my fence, and then I can run this frame vertically using my fence as my angle. Should be about right there. Well, I ran this test piece through to double check my angle on the saw, and if I line this corner up with this corner, you can see how much longer I am in here than I am here. That's what first stood out, that I have my angle calculated incorrectly. So if I go back with my protractor and recheck that, I find out that I actually read it wrong. I read it at 25 and it should be at 35. This is 10, 25, and actually I'm on 10, 20, 35. That's why you always run a test piece to double check first. Let's try that one. That's coming out much better. That's where the adage comes, measure twice, cut once. Use a piece of scrap first. Well, this is a challenging cut to make, because when you're cutting on a tapered fence like this, it has a tendency to want to slide away from the fence. So I put a stop here to hold it, and then when I make that cut, somebody sent me a magnetic feather board that will actually hold that in place as the cut is made and proceed on down the line. Well, I can't take more than one saw cut width, otherwise I would have a remnant being cut off here and it would interfere with my feather board and my other stop. So I have to do this in multiple steps. I can make a pass, and then I'm going to adjust my fence forward and make another pass. Well, I'm going to do all 5 of my seat bases with the first pass, and then make my adjustment, and I come back and do it again until I finally get down to this joint of my lap joint and my depth is correct. So when we're done, we end up with 2 bevels that are square into our corner that is round. We just have to connect the dots. And the front corners need tuned up as well. This line here should be in line with this corner here. I'll just bring that into place. Well, that's a lot of steps just to put the foundation base to a seat. But all these little angles and the little trim work is one of the signatures of Abbot-Downing in the Yellowstone Park stagecoaches. I've got the other 4 to do, and then maybe we can start putting arms and backs on. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.